Oh, I guess we're live. I do the screen share. Sorry, forgot. Such, sort of forgot. So anyway, momentary delay. Okay, audio is working. So pause is good enough. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving right along. There we go. So we're going to talk about magnetism, mostly to start with, anyway. And this Eric Lithwaite, or I don't know how his name exactly is pronounced. I watched a ton of videos by him. I should know how to pronounce his name by now. But anyway, I remember him from the gyroscope guy. And so I did watch about 5 or 6 more of these videos of his magnet theories. And he does say some bold things. I like a lot of what he says in terms of it's. He's an engineer, and he's looking at physics from an engineer's point of view, and that I see as very constructive, very to my purposes, and all of that mush. Um, but yeah, he does say some things. He does use some. There's one example where he's talking as if there's something wrong with Newton's laws, and he's saying, when questioned in an interview, he sort of says, "Oh no, everybody's misunderstanding. I'm not really challenging Newton's laws," but he sort of is, because there's an example where he uses the inertia argument. The typical inertia experiment is you take 3 blocks of different weights and you have them on a smooth surface, and you tilt the surface and the blocks slide. And the idea is that the laws of physics basically say it's like gravity. Each one will have a force acting on it proportional to its weight, and it will slide. It all ends up being the same. Doesn't matter whether it's lighter or heavier. It's all gonna lose its inertia. Its initial state's going to change exactly proportional to that mass. And as long as you minimize the friction component, it'll have little effect. And anyway, so he does that experiment and shows that, no, look, they move at a different time. And they only move at a different time because even if you have a smooth surface, you're creating either vacuums like adhesions, because the thing you're sliding is too smooth too. So there's end up being from the humidity in the air, a suction cup effect or something, and that's what's causing the difference. And he's implying like something's wrong with the laws of physics, when no, there's just something wrong in that if you don't do the experiment under kind of controlled circumstances, you can have some aberrant uh, uh, events, but they're explainable aberrations. So anyway, he's a little reckless in that sense. And he does that with a gyroscope, in sort of implying that there's some other force involved here than the ones we've accounted for. And I don't think he can back that up. But anyway, the interesting part is the magnetic theory stuff. So I think I'll get to some of that. So we'll play this from the beginning. I don't think it's too far in, so I don't think it'll be too boring, and it'll give me something to comment on. And I haven't reloaded the browsers in this video, so this video might crash, but we'll see how it goes. This room might crash. All right, now there is an interesting thing where he's a bit of a performance artist in how he does his experiments, and there's a little theater involved in this, which is okay. I just don't know if it's entirely productive. So yeah, maybe this part is a little bit silly. Okay, he's going to shoot the little balls that are floating on the water because of the way they, the water adhesions to the surface and blah blah blah. And all of that is probably not terribly important. So maybe we'll skip ahead a bit, because I really don't want to get to the whole explaining the two different. Oh, look at that! I could see the image and then I can't. Well, whatever. I'll just jump ahead. So he's making an analogy, so between fluids and electricity. So he's trying to point out, so you can analogize these two things that can create a system that's made out of fluids moving, and it's like an electrical circuit. And that leads to a discussion of magnetism eventually. So we'll start here somewhere.
Now, the trouble with analogs is that none of them are ever completely true. So let's see how.
So, I like these, that these are really great statements. So, yes, analogies are useful, but you can't take them too seriously, because you're basically using one thing, like a lighter, to explain to somebody who's never seen a torch. And you could say, well, look, it's kind of like a lighter, except it's a much bigger flame. And if you have two lighters and you have a difference, then you can sort of explain, see the big difference between these two. And a torch is even bigger, something like that.
How far we can take this water electric analog before it breaks down. First of all, if I replaced this rigid pipe with a flexible hose, then when I turn the pressure on, it would blow out like a garden hose pipe does and try and make itself into a circle. Now, will the same thing happen with the electric circuit? Suppose I were to replace this coil with a more flexible one, what do you think would happen?
So this is a really bad analogy. So this is I don't know whether he's doing that on purpose. It doesn't seem like he is, but this is like comparing apples and oranges, because the reason why this happens is very different from the reason why the fluid tends to create a momentum in a direction. And when you try to change that direction, that's going to be friction. And so it tends to expand just because it has momentum, and you're forcing the momentum to change. And the price is that the material doesn't have enough force, enough rigidity to do what you're asking it to do. You're asking it to convert too much pressure, and it doesn't have the strength. It's not a strong enough material, so it expands just incidentally because it doesn't have the rigidity of the structure, isn't strong enough to overwhelm the strength of the pressure. Now, in the magnet example or the electricity example, it's a completely different phenomenon.
I'm going to use a loop of aluminium foil. Ordinary kitchen foil will do, but the thinner the better. When I switch on the current...
All right, so this is one of these classic kind of things. They use gold to measure charge, a gold leaf, and, just bending, flipping. And, so, the two, you have two little pieces of gold leaf and they'll separate, if you charge them. And again, this is sort of a magnetic effect in the sense of, as I've explained before, the field lines created by a magnet aren't really field lines. They're not a real thing. They're just a reveal of how far apart, if you placed magnets in those positions, their repulsion would be. Everything's lining up, north to south. All the little bits, all the little iron filings or ferrous material, they're all lining up. So they're all lining up the same way, and they're repelling each other. So the field lines are an illustration of the magnets repelling each other because they're not phased in a way that would, they're essentially turned into whole magnets. So it starts with the atom. So let's say this is an atom, and the atom has a bias, a plus and a minus. So first you line up the atoms. When you line up the atoms, what you've essentially done is then lined up domains or big hunks of material where all the atoms line up. And now the domains can have a bias, and then you can line up all the domains, and that's when you create a full magnet. So when the ferrous material, the little filings, start lining up, they're doing the same thing. They're converting from single little magnets into a bigger magnet. And the whole line becomes a magnet, and the magnets are repelling each other. And that's causing the separation. Same thing's happening in this foil. The separation is because the two magnets are lined up with each other and they're repelling.
It does blow out like the water pipe. I mustn't leave the current on for too long each time, otherwise I shall burn out the tape.
So that's another thing to understand, as I've pointed out, that Well, no, as I actually pointed out in yes, the CPSW, whatever, the I put the link below. The top link is to the CNPS Science Video Conference. So they have posted the video, the 2-hour video, Saturday morning that I did. And so that link is there, plus a link to the search results under Eric, whatever, where you can find a bunch of his videos. So the John Chappell thing is now available. So the link is below. And somebody will play some of that if the comments are as usual, and I get finished with this other guy. But we'll see how it goes. All right, so back to this. All right, so it's important to understand that it's a lot of current, and so a lot of current. It takes a lot more current. It takes a lot of current to create a little bit of magnetism when you're doing it this way. Now, if you use coils, you can magnify the effect, so it takes a lot less current to make a lot of magnetism. But you have to maximize the mechanism. And this simplification, this little bit of foil, can't create much of a magnet. And so you need a lot of current because you have to create a lot of electrons, a lot of bias, where everything lines up the same. And that alignment will create magnets that are only strong enough to move foil. They couldn't pick up a brick with that magnet. It's very weak magnetism. So what they call the electromagnetic force, or they have all these different words, and they're like flux is a word for the magnetism moving through a substance. And then they have the field, the electric field. An electric field is essentially just a magnetic field produced by electricity. Well, it's not entirely true either. So, okay, just back up, forget that part, and we'll deal with the word when it's used, but it's used to describe multiple things that aren't the same thing, because that's what needs to be said.
It takes about 20 amps to do this. Now I'm going to try something different. I'm going to hold a bar magnet alongside, and this time when I switch on, something very different occurs.
Right, so that magnet's really strong. So the magnetism of the foil is pretty weak, but that magnet's really strong, so it pulls that now magnetized foil. So the electricity essentially just magnetizes the foil by creating an electron coherent alignment of electrons. So it emphasizes the bias. There's one side that's positive, one side that's negative, whichever one you want to do with the atoms. And all you're doing is magnifying the bias. That is, you're creating more, all the little things are bias, and that bias adds up to a bigger bias because it's additive. And the same effect is here.
And of course, there's no equivalent of this in the water circuit unless I can get hold of a water diviner and his hazel twig.
Yes, so whatever. I don't even think that would be an analogy. But yes, so you really can't compare these two things, because one thing, the spreading of the foil, had nothing to do with the momentum of the current. It didn't have anything to do with the direction of the current, where the flow of the water and the expansion has everything to do with the mass of the water, and the fact that the mass of the water is much more than the mass of the hose containing it. So you need a more mass in your container if you're going to resist a high amount of flow or mass of water moving in a direction.
But then, you always get into difficulties when you try to explain the behavior of permanent magnets.
Now, that was true, but it's not true anymore. Yes. So that's something I have changed. It's now no longer difficult.
Let me show you what I mean.
So this is the part I found
I'm going to use 2 bar
very illustrative of my point.
magnets. And first of all, I place them with like poles opposite. So, of course, they repel each other. If I put a bit of steel now on the pole of that magnet, I don't change the polarity of it by just doing that. If that was a North Pole before, then the outside of the steel will still be a North Pole, and so it should still repel the other magnet, shouldn't it? Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, so no, why would you think that? I mean, why would you intuitively assume, okay, that when you do that, I mean, yes, it's clear that it would go south, north, then that's the side stuck to the one side would be south and then north, but it's one magnet now. So once you stick it on, just like the atoms lining up, they're not individual atoms anymore. They're not individual little magnets. They're just one magnet. So once you stick the steel on there, did I say that right? All right. Well, anyway, let's do this. The next part is where it will get interesting. I promise.
In that condition, both magnets are pulling on the steel outwards. They're trying to split it in half.
Right. Okay. So that's the better explanation. All right. So when you put the steel on the magnet, let's go back to that part. Okay. So when you stick the steel on the magnet, now the polarity of the steel changes, which it shouldn't do. So in a sense, his argument is that there's two magnets. The steel turns into two magnets in the sense that there's a dividing line in the middle of the steel that now reverses the polarity or reverses the sequence. So it's not north, south, north, south. No. And instead, it's north, south, north, south, north. So there's extra north. Yeah.
Before, then the outside of the steel will still be a North Pole, and so it should still repel the other magnet, shouldn't it? Surprise, surprise.
Part of it has to do with how he pushed the two things into each other. So that's part of the why this worked. He didn't move it into the other magnet. He pushed it into the other magnet. So that's the part, I think, that throws it off. Let's see. That's what he does.
If that was a North Pole before, then the outside of the steel will still be a North Pole, and so it should still repel the other magnet, shouldn't it?
Okay, so he didn't, as you noticed, he didn't let go of the magnet. So it may well have repelled, but he didn't allow it to. See, these aren't like neodymium magnets. These are the old style magnets, olden day magnets, not all that strong. So you didn't see it, but it was actually repulsive. And it wasn't until he made contact, then they shared the steel. So that's when the steel had a problem, is because it has two equal poles that are basically establishing the magnetism of the steel. So there's two forces telling the steel what its magnetism is going to be, and the steel splits in half essentially to accommodate both. So he made that happen by pushing the two magnets into each other and not allowing the magnet to repel, because it would have repelled if he had left it alone. Okay, that fixes it. So we'll do it again just to make sure you understand what I'm saying.
I don't change the polarity of it by just doing that. If that was a North Pole before, then the outside of the steel will still be a North Pole. And so
look that his hand is holding the magnet down. Now remember, in the other example, he let that magnet move freely when he pushed the other one into it. It can't move freely, so it can't be repelled, which it would have been. So a little deception.
Still repel the other magnet.
See, it is repelling. If he let go of this, one of them or the other one, if he let go of one of these hands, the other magnet would move away. He's forcing them to both have contact with the steel, and now the steel has a problem. But just being stuck on that magnet, it didn't have a problem. It went north-south, north-south. Now when you push the two together, there's two equal forces that are saying, I want control of the steel, and the steel compromises by splitting in half.
Shouldn't it? Surprise, surprise.
So that was deceptive. I mean, that wasn't, he should have pointed out how I can feel the repulsion when I'm forcing these two together. and then the repulsion stops when I make contact. And he didn't say that. So it is a little deceptive.
In that condition, both magnets are pulling on the steel outwards. They're trying to split it in half. Let's give them the opportunity to do
So this is the part that illustrates my point.
that by making it a double piece of steel. Now, when I release my fingers, will they in fact succeed in pulling it in half? They do.
So clearly indicating the fact that now the two magnets can each have their own, the mass is equal. They have each have their own piece, and therefore they just do what they normally do, which would be north, south, north, south, north, south, north, south. So the two repulsive ends are facing each other. They repel. It's all quite natural, and it's exactly what I'm talking about when I say the field lines are like those pieces of steel. Each one of them will have exactly the same orientation. So they will be repulsive to each other because their magnetism is being created by the magnet. So the big magnet here that's creating field lines creates duplicates of itself at the field lines. And those duplicates are all repulsive because they're all going exactly the same direction. They all have the same bias. So as magnets, as whole magnets, each one of those lines is a magnet, as a domain even. Those domains are all repulsive. They're all lined up similar instead of opposite, so they can't attract, they have to repel. And so where the field lines is essentially dictated by the strength of the magnetism of the ferrous material.
Now, here's a situation, isn't it? In that condition, they just don't want to know each other. But with only a single piece of steel,
so he did it again. He had his fingers on both of them. So let's just recognize what he did again. And like I said, he knows what he's doing. So for his purposes, somehow this is just, I'm not saying his is a horrible man. I'm just saying he should have pointed out that, yes, I feel the repulsion. But once they're together, there won't be any. And he's just not being entirely fair.
Now, here's a situation, isn't it?
Could be a new post.
I don't know. I guess somebody knows when I'm making videos. And they just say, yeah, I'm going to make one of my retarded posts. There's only retards who comment on my website. So anyway, it's a nice feature to be notified, but it's no point because everybody's an idiot. All the nice things I've invented are useless because people suck.
In that condition, they just don't want to know each other. But with only a single piece of steel, both magnets are quite happy.
So you could see he had his hands on both of them. He pushed both of them together. So he ignored their repulsion, forced them together, then they stuck. But it was only when both of them made contact with the steel and they created now a symmetry. And now the symmetry forces the material to essentially split in two and create two opposite magnets.
Attach themselves to it. I told you permanent magnets were going to be difficult, but believe me, there's worse to follow.
Well, really, there isn't. But see, it's not difficult if he wouldn't have deceived everybody. So a guy like, he was deceptive. I'm just saying, it's clearly deception.
Suppose I take an unmagnetized steel ball and an unmagnetized bit of steel. I'm going to put the steel ball on the magnet pole. As I approach it and touch it with the unmagnetized bit, I can always succeed in bringing the ball away with the unmagnetized piece.
Right. And so, but it's obviously been magnetized by having association with the magnet. And because the steel bar is bigger, it became a powerful magnet and the ball stuck to it. So that's all that happened there. I mean, there is the question, the magnetism created, the temporary magnetism created in the steel is actually stronger magnetism than the ferrous composite material that the magnet is being made out of.
If I put a bit of cardboard in between magnet and ball to begin with, you can actually see the ball jump.
So we know the ball is now magnetized, okay, like the magnet. So if it's south-north, it's south-north for the ball.
Away from the magnet. I'm going to suggest there's an explanation of these phenomena using the...
Now, but you could see the ball turn. So I guess that's the key part of it. So let's just do that again. You can see the ball turn, which means it reversed to be north-south, north-south to the new magnet. So that's the key point. So
you see the ball jump away from the magnet.
You see it turn first. Watch it. Ball turns. So the ball turns because there's a new magnet with a different field. So the new magnet now has turned the ball, which essentially makes the ball repulsive to the original magnet. So now it's no longer attracted. It's essentially semi-repulsive. And now it's going to be easy for it to jump. There it goes.
I'm going to suggest there's an explanation of these phenomena using the pole concept would be very difficult indeed. So what analog can I find?
So now he's going to look for analogies, and but frankly, you can't do analogies until you understand that the magnets are just filters for a force, and the polarization is what we call that filtering. And the filtering is just a matter of if the atoms are in this orientation, the perpendicular goes this way, you know, and if they're in this orientation, it goes this way. You know, it's just a directional thing. And it means that the electron force goes one way and the proton force goes another way. And it's that filtering that creates all of these phenomena.
Help me with an explanation. I'm going to use an analog of a magnetic circuit.
So now we get into more just
this is an iron.
This isn't all that interesting. It's just the basics of induction and transformers and conveying force through magnetism. So it's not this is routine stuff. There won't be any. He doesn't return to the magnetic example and do something analogous with electricity. From my memory anyway, there's no analogy. So in the end, he levitates stuff. This is a guy who basically invented or was key person in the whole maglev technology. And that's I guess his first claim to fame. And then he did a bunch of gyroscope stuff, which was a second claim. And then his third claim is this. So anyway, an interesting person. But as I just pointed out, as I just illustrated, not incapable of a little bit of shenanigans, let's just say, to prove a point. And his illustration, as I just pointed out, wasn't entirely honest to the circumstance. All right, I got a 104% on my second physics exam. Well, that's very nice. I don't know how exactly you get the 4%, but I guess they had some extra credit for something. So, I mean, that's obviously a spectacular score, I suppose, but I don't know what the exam was, so it's hard to say. I mean, you got a sample of the test, and I'll see how badly I do. Yo, could you please explain the logic of this shit? I don't know what. Could you go fuck yourself till dead? Sendvid.com. I don't think I'm doing something from sendvid.com. You are not typing in vain, friend. I don't know what that means. So yeah. Well, anyway, I'm not. Whatever sendvid is, I'm not too sure of that. But it's your little private video. So yeah, no, I gotta know what you're up to before I waste my time going to OOTE29SU. Send vid, whatever that is. All right. Anyway, so I guess we'll go to. Oh, sorry. Blemish of some kind. I'm trying to do something obnoxious. Anyway, it's hot as fuck in here. 86.5 degrees. It's a little too hot. Let's see. What did somebody type something? Gotta figure out how to do these windows a little more efficiently. It's a video of a guy defending himself. What does that mean? Why do I care? It's a video of a guy defending himself? What the fuck does that mean? Hey, I really like Ton Theory. Well, this isn't Ton Theory, so you can just go fuck yourself till dead. Ugh, Jesus Christ. There's no Jesus. Just as bad as trolls. Jesus is just as bad an idea. So yeah, so we'll go to subscriptions. I guess we'll close this because if I open too many windows, everything will go blow up, go to hell. All right, so we'll open this thing. It was interesting. I mean, I didn't expect to be the subject of the room.
So look who we have here today. So we have back Draft Science. Now what was your first name, real name?
Yeah, so they do a name thing. So I didn't look. I wasn't looking to he just picked me because I guess everybody else was silent or quiet or not cammed or some other thing. So anyway, I got to be the star of the show. What's my fault?
It's Gary.
Gary. Should we call you Gary or should we call you Draft Science?
I don't know. Draft Science sounds like a title, so I think I'll like that better. But Gary's okay if you're more comfortable.
Well, I think it'd be easy to remember Draft Science because we see your name on.
Yes, that's right. So let's just see. The whole name thing. I just don't. I never had any affection for my name. It was, it's just a name. And it was sort of chosen just because I was a twin. I had a twin sister. So is it going to be Jack and Jill, or it was going to be Gary and Gail, or it was going to be Steve and whatever the girl thing for that is. Anyway, it was going to be some pair name. And so it's not really my name. It's just it's like too random. It didn't have anything to do with me. I mean, we shouldn't be named until we're at least 15 years old or something. Should know who we are before we're named. All right, so the guy calls me dude. Okay, so I mean, I ask you to point out what you're up to, and this is the best you can do. Hey, dude, say toy boat 5 times as fast as you can. Yeah, sure. Die. To get cancer and die. Just die, you piece of shit. Just die, please. Ugh. Stupid fucking shitheads. Oh, and now I'm Miles Mathis, idiot. Let's see what he's saying. Why is Miles Mathis so petty about Ton Theory? So more Ton, just whatever. You're hilarious. I just keep coming on and saying Ton. It's just so funny. I mean, these are people who, this is what they do. They don't like freedom of speech. They don't like freedom of information. They want to heckle people so the show is ruined. They don't want anything that's coherent in the world. They don't want other people to make their choices about what they can hear or what they have access to. They just want to be time wasters. They want to attack by wasting other people's time. They don't want to win a fair fight. They want to exhaust people by wasting their time. I mean, they're criminally asswipe, and they should be treated as asswipe and dumped in the ocean till dead. Entirely dead.
You're on the prompt there.
Yeah, that's good for me.
I think we had some heated discussion last week about what Bill Lucas was discussing there.
Yeah, well, I tend to say what I think, and that can get you in trouble sometimes. But hopefully it won't get out of hand. David seems to have worn off, so he seems okay now. So.
Yeah, yes, obviously it's okay, but it's only like pretend okay. But anyway, that's the best you can hope for, I guess, is pretend okay. Can't do real okay. Pretend okay is okay.
I think we survived it. But yeah, I just don't, I guess I'd sort of like that as a conversation would be the subject of, why people are so passionate about, some of these things like ether and.
So the other guy was basically doing the electric universe thing, but not the electric universe. He's associated with it, but he's not associated. I don't know exactly what the connection is. He did videos that are part of the archive for the electric universe. So he clearly was associated with it at one time. But anyway, he's apparently still arguing his own theory of the electric universe or something like that. But yes, it's an ether theory, essentially.
Because I don't see as much, I see the same problem. I mean, the evidence is weak for Einstein and quantum mechanics, but the evidence is also very weak for ether. And I'm surprised how many people are etherists.
I'm amazed by it, actually. Apparently, it's such a dominant feature of the people who don't like conventional physics. They want to replace it with ether physics. And I can only think that it's because they have this love affair with tradition. So it's almost like religion in the sense that somehow, and monarchy, people like the king. That was another thing that was kind of weird about the Eric Little, whatever his name is. He, in an interview, he was all glowy and gooey about the fact that Prince Charles came to see his, his gyroscopes. And I mean, it was just so, it was, I mean, why a scientist would give the fake king of England any kind of respect. I just don't know why they would fall for that shit. The total unmeritorious celebrity. I mean, he didn't do anything at all except be farted out in the palace. I mean, nothing. And he's like all impressed.
So, what do you think is the the weakness of quantum mechanics? If you could point out some things.
Well, it's like Einstein doesn't explain gravity in the sense he provides no source of energy, and quantum mechanics does the same thing to, like, say, magnetism, for example. There's absolutely no source of the energy. Like, how do the magnets move together? What fuel gets burned, for example? And there's no explanation for the fuel that gets burned. It's just.
Yes, and ether theory also doesn't explain where the energy comes from. I mean, it also just leaves a big nothing in terms of where's you're conveying a perturbation, but the perturbation can't be making the energy. It's just transmitting a signal. So how does it amplify the signal? Because the truth is the signal somehow has to be turned into a real force. So you're converting a signal, something weak at one place, into something strong in another place, strong enough for physical things to move apart from each other. And ether doesn't explain that either, unless you pressurize the ether, unless you make the ether into something like rubber or something that can expand and contract and store energy. So now your ether is getting quite complicated. It's not just a transmission medium. Now it's a medium that can create high pressure and low pressure.
This virtual something or other that somehow does this thing. So they don't even, Einstein has a fake medium in the sense of bent space, but quantum mechanics doesn't even have a fake medium. It doesn't have anything. it just has this, and then the rest of it's just wave theory. And I would argue that that's angle theory.
So yeah, I could have said that more clearly, that quantum mechanics basically just says there's a virtual photon that's a force carrier. It's not really a force carrier. It has to be the force. So, it's not carrying a force. It has to be the force. I mean, photons are a force. Photons have energy. Photons can move things. Photons can heat things. Photons are energy. They're a force. And so they're not a force carrier. They're a force. And how can you have a virtual force? See, if they were forced to use real honest words, and instead of saying virtual photon, they had to say virtual force, virtual energy, then people maybe would go, oh, how exactly can energy be virtual?
It's not wave theory. Maxwell's equations are all about angles. It's not about waves.
So this is an argument, again, that nobody responds to, but this is the truth of it, that they call something a wave equation, Schrodinger's wave equation. It's not a wave equation, it's an angle equation. And, this is more of the kind of deception. I mean, it's a little bit dishonest to say this is a wave equation when it doesn't have waves in it. It has an angle in it, a sine theta. And that angle is indicative of rays leaving at angles. It's not indicative of wave interference. They make up the cause. The end effect is a vector. The end effect is a ray. Now, my theory says, yes, it's a ray. So we don't have to do any interpretation. We don't have to do any we don't have to translate from one thing to another. No translation required. Where their theory requires them to translate that angle into a mechanism that caused it, which is this complex interference thing that creates this vector. So there's many more extra steps in their theory. Mine gets directly to the evidence. Mine explains exactly the evidence without any unnecessary steps. Let's see. Maxwell's equations are wave equations. No, they're not. Show me the wave factor. Show me how the wave is represented in Maxwell's equations. They're vector equations. Vectors are rays, retard. They're not waves. It doesn't have any sine theta. It has rays. It has vectors. So same difference. I mean, it's not the traditional two-slit wave equation, but it's exactly the same in the sense that all it creates is lines of force, straight lines of force, not waves of force, lines of force. So fuck you, tropical juice. What do you think, Gotti? Yeah, sure you are. What do you think about ME? I don't know who that is. Mathematical contribution to symmetry. Couldn't give a shit. Symmetry is nonsense. The whole string theory is nonsense. Go play with whatever poo you want to. Oh well, keep lying about things you don't know. I'm not lying. I asked you to show me the wave factor in the math. Show me how there are anything other than vectors of force in the math, directions of force, lines of fucking force. The whole math is created by creating the divergence of the lines of force. That's how the inverse square law comes out of Maxwell's equations. So fuck you. You're the one lying. Okay. Oh, well, you're the liar. Yeah, the sine theta angle in Maxwell's equations makes sense. I don't know what you're saying. Well, if you block me, what? What's going to be my penalty? What will I be denied is you're just going to keep asserting things that aren't true. I'll ask a simple question. Show me in the math something that's a wave factor in Maxwell's math. Show me something that's not a ray, a vector, a straight line, force medium. Show me something that isn't. Again, I'm just saying every time you reduce Maxwell's equations to drawings, the drawing is basically lines of force. And you're basically, the strength of the force has to do with how many of those lines you intersect. So when you convert the math into a model, you're basically just saying the thing emanates lines of force in directions. And how strong the force will be is dictated by how many of those lines you intersect. And you can sort of understand if they're going off at angles, all these angles, you'll intersect more lines close and less lines further away. That's Maxwell's math, fuckhead. Tell me, now explain to me how that's an inaccurate description of Maxwell's equations. I don't see you answering. Was that inaccurate, fuckhead? Yes, I'll ignore you entirely. That's right. I already explained. I don't care who Emmy Nothers are. I don't care about symmetry. This is bullshit theoretical rubbish. I have no interest in it. Fuck you. Has nothing to do with this conversation. Has nothing to do with comparing my theory to conventional physics. Nothing. Nothing. So I might as well just block you. So I will. I mean, the questions I've asked are really simple. So go to my homepage on this channel, and there's a playlist called Questions. There's only 2 videos in there, I think, maybe 3, and answer the fucking simple questions. So, okay, enough of you assholes.
So, you know,
Well, is quantum mechanics even supposed to try to explain that? Because it seems to me that a lot of modern science, the philosophy is, well, if you can write an equation that explains the empirical results, you're done.
So in this part, I'm pointing out that, well, what quantum mechanics is essentially covers everything that Einstein doesn't cover. So everything that's not the big universe is essentially quantum mechanics, because it's all the little universe. So whether it's strictly part of quantum mechanics wave interpretation of force transmission or not, directly in magnetism, it clearly is by verbiage, just as the example of the text argument with this asshole. He's claiming Maxwell's equations are wave equations, when clearly they're not. So it's all just propaganda, but clearly quantum mechanics is claiming ownership of Maxwell.
Right. So,
yeah, I think that's sort of what quantum mechanics is. I mean, quantum mechanics is basically everything smaller than the galaxy, right? I mean, anything smaller than a planet is all of a sudden affected by quantum mechanics, and everything above, like an asteroid or whatever, is, you know, Einstein. So it's like, to me, that's how I make the delineation, is quantum mechanics is.
So obviously on the spur of the moment, just talking off the top of my head, first I said a galaxy, then I said a planet, then I said an asteroid. But yes, anything smaller than, I don't know, this lighter is quantum mechanics, and everything bigger than the lighter is Einstein.
Claiming that every single particle, you know, an atom, 10 atoms, 100 atoms, all have this quantum mechanical Heisenberg blah, blah, blah problem. You know, and it's just smaller with the big things than it is with the little things, so we don't notice it. But everything somehow has a quantum mechanical property, and that has something to do with why it doesn't move from point A to point B in a straight line sometimes. But
so let's understand that, yes, in most 99.99999% of the time, this thing isn't going to show any of that crap. And clearly things a lot smaller than this aren't going to show that crap. And so this whole theory of quantum mechanics is based on very small things that are very hard to observe, and they just have drawn conclusions about the causes. And I argue quite, I think, sensibly that assuming has never been tested against the other possible assumptions, and that the other possible assumptions, in my opinion, are so much more lucid than their silly interpretation, which is the photon has radar, the photons break into, the photons interfere with themselves, when the simple argument is no, the photons are going close to the matter and the matter is affecting the photons.
Like I said, it's a very ambiguous quantum mechanics. I mean, it doesn't, every person you ask, every physicist will give you a different definition of what quantum mechanics means. I mean, Feynman, for example, wasn't a Heisenberg-Huygens person. He really didn't believe photons were waves, and he didn't think of it as wave interference. He just thought of it as a random number generator was imposing on photons and telling them, you have to do this probability math.
So I think that's an essentially correct paraphrase. So if somebody wants to give me show me a different, I mean, when Feynman did do the two slit experiment, I'm pretty sure he did draw them as waves interfering. So in that sense, in that earlier lecture, he, the 10 years difference at least, he might have not been as sure about particles versus waves. But clearly in the 72 or whatever they were, 74 lectures, he was pretty clear about saying it's not a wave, it's a particle, it's a clump.
And so he didn't account for causes at all. He just kind of said, I'm not even going to deal with a cause. It's just a probability equation. And so he wouldn't even fit in the traditional, that's the funny thing, right? He's known for being a patriarch of quantum mechanics, and his definition wasn't anything like the most popular definitions.
Yeah, I've always found that to be, whenever I want to make a reference for something that's extremely vague, it's like, I'll say quantum mechanics, because who knows what that really means, right?
So that's even part of the joke here. So, everybody is convinced regarding the truth value of a theory they admit is so strange and weird and unintuitive and, in a sense, not sensible, that they make the argument. Nobody understands it. That's part of the fun. I mean, it is kind of ironic to have weak evidence for something that you're claiming you can't understand and is bizarre and extraordinary. So right on the surface, you're saying, well, if it's so extraordinary, it's so strange, then shouldn't it have extraordinary evidence? It should have strangely solid evidence. And there's nothing strangely solid about the two-slit experiment interpretation. There's no solid evidence of Huygens, for example. We have absolutely zero evidence that anything like that actually happens. No evidence that anything like that actually happens. All right, so here we go with the same bullshit from Tropical Douche. So I asked a simple question. He won't answer it. I directed him to videos. He won't watch them. All right, it dictates the charge in the electric vector field. So whatever that electric vector field, I don't think that's a technical term. They're vectors. The force is perturbates in vectors of direction, showing that the field oscillates with the magnetic field. It doesn't, the magnetic field does not oscillate. There's no oscillation in the field. That only happens when you create one through electricity or something else. But there's no oscillation in the magnetic field of a neodymium magnet. I think you're thinking of Gauss's law. It doesn't, they're all part of the same thing. So if you can't see that either, that Maxwell's equations are just a a combining of a bunch of other relationships, and you can't even do Maxwell's equations without some of Gauss's laws. I mean, using some of Gauss's equations. But your explanation was so garbled. Well, fuck you. Just fuck off then. If you couldn't understand my explanation, you're too fucking retarded for have a conversation with. There was nothing garbled about it. I spoke it in English, you shit for brain. Fuck you. Just fuck you. You're done. Fuck you. That's just such a lame excuse. You couldn't understand my English verbiage. I speak fundamentally better than most people on this planet, you fucking cunt. You're just obnoxiously useless. So here's another fucking John Wayne account. You make your hangouts vague. What's vague about it? I started the hangout by saying I want to talk about magnetism. And then I decided to do the Chappelle thing. And haven't I done exactly that, you fucking retard? And then expect people to confront your to conform to your expectations to a T. My expectation is you're reasonably polite, and you're not. That's all. My expectation is if I don't type this kind of crap on other people's videos, even people I hate, then why should I accept it? Stop doing what I don't do. Okay, which is being a rude fuck. If you can't show respect in how you're going to interrogate me, you can go fuck yourself. So in here, this is more, here it is right here. Stop acting like an ass white. An ass white? Obfuscating. How am I obfuscating anything? I mean, you're just amazing. I'm sitting there detailing things and he's saying, I'm obfuscating something. Fuck you. Jesus Christ. Troll after troll. You somehow managed to keep bullshitting. So again, what did I bullshit about? Did I say it's fundamentally accurate to call Maxwell's equations vector equations? That's more accurate than calling them wave equations because they're really about force at a vector. And that's how you measure the strength of the field. You're not measuring a wave. You're measuring the strength, okay, of vectors. The magnitude of them. How many vectors of force? How many force lines do you intersect? That's fundamentally what the math is doing, you fucking cunt. So whatever. I just don't have to put up with this shit, and I'm not going to. Fuck you. I'll let him stay. Let's just see how he turns this into anything meaningful. There's nothing inconsistent with my theory and Maxwell's equations. Nothing. There's nothing Maxwell's equations predict that my theory doesn't predict. So I'm just saying, until you point out how there's a contradiction between the results of the experiments and what I theorize to be the causes, you're not making an argument that matters. Hi, Venveen. Who's that? I'm not banned. Well, you will be if you can't do better than that. Aha, I unsubbed from Piro because he creeps me out. That's totally uninteresting. What is so creepy? Jeez, it is on his channel, question mark. I don't even know what that means. I think it was on Daspook or Mike Fail's channel. What was on? It's about vector fields. Vectors are lines. I don't want to, have to explain that to you, but vectors are rays. That's how you illustrate a vector, is to have a stick with a point on it, and you point it in a direction. That's a vector, fuckhead. It's not a wave. It's a vector. The last word is important if you're going to go on words, whatever that even means. The field, if that's your last word, vector fields, the field is the force. The force is made of something. You don't understand that photons are made of something. Okay, you think it's perturbations in whatever, perturbadia. No, it's substance. the substance moves from one place to another. The little clumps, as Feynman would say. Again, would you make this argument against Feynman? Would you say that Feynman was an asshole to say that photons were clumps, not perturbations?
Yeah, and they
So vague what they're talking about.
you know, when they go into the argument admitting nobody understands it, I mean, that's not a funny joke. You know what I mean? When you're going to go into a courtroom and say, you're not going to believe the evidence I'm going to present, you know, it's going to sound totally insane. That's starting your trial, you know, in a very negative position, in my opinion. When you're admitting people can't understand what you're saying.
Let's see, I've got the wiki here saying that quantum mechanics is a fundamental theory which describes nature at the smallest scale of energy levels of atoms and subatomic particles. At least that's what wiki says.
Yes, well, you know, they've also included buckyballs now and other, you know, atomic structures. So they've moved the quantum mechanic experiments to bigger and bigger objects. So now they're claiming bigger and bigger objects have these.
Yes, and they have the effects, and the effects are diminished as you make the object bigger. The effect gets smaller and smaller, completely consistent with the fact that, yes, it's all about interacting with electrons. It's about photons hitting electrons, the two-slit experiment. Then the two-slit experiment with electrons, it's about electrons hitting electrons. When they don't really hit, they glide off of each other. And then it's atoms interacting with electrons, and they get moved even less. And the results are perfectly consistent with that. That's exactly what the experiments demonstrate. All right, let's see, the last word. Well, okay, show them your derivation. So again, this has nothing to do with a derivation. I'm just explaining models. You don't understand what a model is. Their model is Heisenberg-Huygens. My model is forces moving in straight line directions at the speed of light. Little force bits moving in a straight line like an asteroid and having a momentum effect. That's what this is about. This isn't about a derivation of Maxwell's equations. I don't need to derive his equations to draw the image of his model. I've already explained the image of his model. His equations describe, okay, the way the force is conveyed from one point to another. And I've illustrated that. And it's by these vectors and these lines that you cross. That's the way the force is conveyed. We don't need any derivations, douchebag. They are more open-minded. What does that even mean? Well, okay, show them your derivation of Maxwell's equations to those C and PS guys. They are more open-minded. Again, why would anybody be impressed by a derivation of an equation? When if I knew the variables, I don't need to derive the equation, do I? In the two-slit experiment, I know all the variables. I know how wide the slit is. I know what the frequency of the light is. I know how far away the target is. I know all the variables. Why do I need to derive the equation? Why don't I just put the numbers in and do the equation? What do I need a derivative for? You only need derivatives when you don't have a variable. You don't need derivatives if you have the fucking goddamn variables. So this is just playing math games. You're just playing little weasel. You're making it seem like, oh, because you're not doing these fancy mathematical derivations, you're therefore not doing physics. That's not physics. That's just a way of manipulating equations so you can isolate a variable. It doesn't explain what the right answer for the cause of the effect is, you stupid cunt. Whoa, I just had an epiphany. If photons are made of force, then what is force made out of? Oh, I mean, that's just amazing. So now we're going back to creation again. Oh, I can't pause. What is ether made out of? Is that an epiphany? What is ether made out of? I mean, it's just, you're such hypocrites. Who cares what it's made out of? The point is it's a little tiny speck of stuff, and it moves the speed of light in a straight fucking line unless it hits a fucking electron. That's the truth, idiot. Prove that wrong with one experiment that indicates that's not the fucking truth. Oh, what if it's like a unit of ether? What do I need ether for? What do I need to put? Well, let's make the universe out of Jell-O, and then let's turn the Jell-O into little bits, and then let's make the little bits of Jell-O move the speed of light, and then we'll call it ether theory. No, that's not ether, idiot. Just like water, okay? I mean, water's made out of molecules, and the molecules are made out of atoms, and the atoms are made out of protons and electrons, for fuck's sake. The medium is not anything. The medium is a byproduct of the elemental function. Shit. Man, you people are stupid. Let's see. Units of ether. Okay, show them your illustration with your hand. Look, I'm just using my hands because I don't feel like putting the drawing camera on for a moron like you. But you don't seem to understand this. You don't understand that that's exactly how Professor Lewin describes it. That's exactly how the guy in the Stanford guy does it. That's exactly how the guy at Yale University explains it. It's about how many lines of force you interact. The guy at Yale even does it by saying, look, it doesn't even matter how many lines you make, okay, as long as it's a proportional to the total number. So if it's 1,000,000 lines, you can represent it as 10 lines, and it'll give you exactly the proportional answer. So if 1,000,000 is 10, then you know that 500,000 is 5, okay, and 250,000 is 2.5. So you just know exactly how many lines you have to draw. So you just draw it to fit the equation. So he even has a trick to do the math, where he makes it a lot easier to do the math if you use a standard amount of lines that are equal to the constant. So if you tie the constant to the number of lines you create, you can eliminate half the mathematics. So again, where am I saying anything wrong or inaccurate? You are the liars here, fuckhead. I don't need to show anybody an illustration. They either understand what physics says or they don't. I'm not here to explain the conventional theory. I'm here to defeat it. If you don't understand what they say and you don't understand what Maxwell's equations demonstrate, then fuck off, because you're too fucking stupid if you're going to sit there and tell me I don't know what it says when I saw the physics professors explaining it that way, you dumb cunt. Oh, man. No, there's some of this, 1 or 2 people in the dissident community are actual physicists. Who cares? I mean, to be an actual physicist would mean you'd have to somehow believe all this nonsense. You need to get the equation first to plug things in. Again, no one's arguing that. What are you even talking about? No one's arguing that the equations are wrong. There's no fucking Heisenberg in the equations. Do you understand that, fuckhead? Nowhere is Heisenberg in the equation. There's no fucking Huygens in the equation, fucknut. I'm not arguing that the equations are wrong. They're simply a relationship between the width of the slit, the frequency of the light, and the distance to the target. No one's arguing about the fucking effect, shithead, and the relationship between the variables in the experiment. That's not what's at dispute. What's at dispute is the cause, you dumb shit. You're saying it's a wave. I pointed out how, no, it's a ray, you dumb shit. And in the case of Maxwell, that's the truth. It's misdescribed to call it a wave fucking formula, because it's not. It's a vector formula. It's an angle formula. Oh, man, you people are just so fucking full of shit. I mean, this is such a bullshit way to argue. All right, you started talking about deriving. I didn't start talking about deriving equations, you retard. Where in this video did I start talking about deriving equations? And then you're talking about derivatives. No, I didn't bring up any of that shit. You're a fucking lying piece of shit. You're really done here. That's just such a gross lie. Where did I never said a damn thing about a fucking equation or any fucking derivatives, you fucking idiot. You brought that shit up, asshole. You said I should do some derivatives. Therefore, other people understand me. If I do some derivatives, that'll make me look like I know something. When I don't think it demonstrates I know a damn fucking thing about causes and effects. You really are Inco. Okay, you're done. Fuck off. Oh, timeout is the wrong thing. I want to kill you altogether. Fucking jackass. I mean, I haven't been at all incoherent. I've been very straight, very direct in my statements. I don't what I believe and what I don't believe, and I've been very careful not to mischaracterize the thing I'm arguing with. You're the one mischaracterizing it for your own fucking deceptive and crooked purposes, you lying piece of shit. So, yeah, that should do it. No. Well, I blocked the block guy, so yeah, blocked can go to fucking hell too. I don't know how this guy isn't getting eyed. Yes, I want him dead. Yes, kill him. Fuck him. I mean, it's just idiotic. I mean, these preposterous lies. I brought up derivatives. Where did that happen? Didn't happen. I never brought them up. You did. Commenters did. I didn't bring them up. I mean, this douchebag obsession with mathematics is just so fucking idiotic. It's the crudest possible fucking model you can have. 2 + 2 = 4. Does 2 + 2 tell you that one of the ones that are part of the twos is a pen and a lighter, and that the other two is these two pens? Does the formula 2 + 2 tell you anything about these individual things and their properties? No. And that's what's being argued. They argue that this thing is a Huygens Heisenberg mystery particle that goes waves into, it goes electrical this way and magnetical this way, even though there's no evidence that there's anything electric or magnetic about a photon. It's somehow perpetuating through these two magical fields of nothing that's totally undescribed crap. That's their cause. Do you understand? That's what they say is the 2 in the 2 + 2 formula, that it's that thing. That's not in 2 + 2. 2 + 2 just says it's, the effect is 4, and the basic function is there's a width and there's a frequency and there's a distance. None of that has Huygens in it. None of that has Heisenberg in it. There's no Heisenberg to the distances. There's no Heisenberg in the nature of the frequency. Those are all solid variables. So exactly how is the math really the great model? It's a shitty model. It's a completely unarticulate model. It illustrates nothing and explains nothing about what the things actually are. And my counter theory to the silly Heisenberg electromagnetical whatever bullshit is just now the photon is just a bit of energy, and it moves in a straight line, and it goes the speed of light. And so does the virtual photon that causes magnetism, and so do the virtual force that creates gravity. They're all moving the same speed, and they're all the same motherfucker. And you're all fucking idiots to not understand how perfectly simple and brilliant that explanation is. You dumb cunts.
Quantum mechanical properties.
So by this definition, quantum mechanics is anything that's small.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I would have said.
So they're mentioning things like transistors and semiconductors and
that's what I did say, actually, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's just Maxwell's math. So they're claiming that Maxwell's math is quantum mechanics, but you really just need Maxwell to do most of the conversions between photons and electrons. You know, that's the old style electrodynamics. That was around before 1930. You didn't really need quantum mechanics to eventually make a transistor. I mean,
But do you think when they're making a transistor, they're even thinking about any of that stuff?
Yeah, well, they claim they did, but we know they didn't. I mean, you know that, look, once they had the photoresistor, essentially what Einstein discovered, you know, that you could use photons to create current in metals, it was game on. The solid state transistor was going to get invented because it was already an indication that you could create electrical flow and use photons to regulate the flow. I mean, yeah.
No, I made that argument. I worked in a machine shop, and we were always inventing by, you know, blowing things up. You know, let's try this. You know, let's stick the electrode in our ear. You know, I mean, you try anything sometimes to get something to work. And, you know, so there was no, you know, there was no theory. There was just, you knew it did this, and you're saying, well, if it does that, it must be able to.
All right, so I can't say there was no theory. There was principles that were understood. I mean, it's like, you know, an antenna is producing Wi-Fi, let's say. You know, it's producing some microwaves. And you can know something about those waves and how they travel in terms of they do better going sideways than going up or some kind of crap like that. And that certain surfaces will absorb them and certain ones will reflect them. And so you can know certain mechanical things. And you can know, well, I can manipulate this antenna in a certain way and give it more range in a certain direction. I can focus it. I can take a parabola, you know, a metal parabola, and I can reflect the antenna and make it a stronger signal. So it's like, yeah, you don't need a whole bunch of theory. You just need to have some accurate knowledge about basic function.
Do this too, so let's try to make it do this. You know, and so I think that's where invention comes from. I think most invention is, as you know, it's the Edison style, not the Tesla style invention. You know, most of it's just trial and error.
Well, there are always these claims about, you know, quantum mechanics.
So this guy asked, does Ken Wheeler ever go on CNPS? Ken Wheeler never interacts with anybody, okay, who isn't applauding him. So I've never seen him actually interact with somebody who disagrees with him fundamentally. He's a pussy. I think that amendment couldn't pass a first year again, so you're just wasting my time. I mean, I've watched tons of lectures. I certainly could pass it. This is just bullshit. There's no metaphysical problems. This is just such a waste of my time. First year says something wacky about how he thinks. Yeah, so there's something wacky about having rational forces. It's not wacky to talk about Heisenberg, you know, photons not knowing where they are. It's not wacky to talk about them having radar or splitting in two and interfering with themselves or interfering with other photons in the interferometer. No, that all makes great sense. Anyway, he has solved a great metaphysical problem. Peace out, man. Yeah, just fuck off and die. Yeah, you're just too fucking useless. You got nothing. You can't answer the simple questions I've asked. You can't defend your science. You can't defend your fucking religion. And you're just demonstrating you're all religious kooks. This has nothing to do with you giving a shit about the truth. You just care about your traditional notions of what the world is made out of. And it all has unicorns in it. It's all purple, your favorite color. This is about satisfying your neuroses and your metaphysical problem. You're searching for your fucking God, you cunt. You're not searching for the fucking truth. Fucking bastards.
Mechanics is the basis of, you know, modern society, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, well, they don't have any evidence. They just say it, right? So, you know,
Yeah, say it.
evidence, they don't have the evidence. They cite the integrated circuit, and I could just cite how the you know, the first papers written on the integrated circuits didn't mention Heisenberg or Huygens or any of that stuff. So you can say it was quantum mechanics, but no, it was just the knowledge that there was this effect and that you could create essentially a vacuum tube out of a solid state material. And, it was all incremental. It's not like they went from, vacuum tubes to integrated circuits in 4 days. It take them years to slowly improve their new light bulb, so to speak. Look how long it took to get the blue LEDs, 35, 40 years, from red LED to blue, 40 years.
But man, after that happened, then progress was quite rapid. Now we have LED lights for like everything.
Yeah, I mean, it was always, they knew theoretically it was there. I mean, even back when I worked, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, LEDs were a little bit expensive, but the great thing was is they lasted a really long time. So they're really great, in industrial purposes. But you knew you were losing a heck of a lot. You know what I mean? The amount of energy, the light you were getting was very small compared to the energy you put in. So you knew there was huge efficiencies to be built out of that. I worked with some of the first diode lasers, and they would cost us $40 and they'd last 6 hours. And now they last 40 years and cost 4 cents.
I wonder if they credited quantum mechanics with the development of the blue LED.
Oh yeah, they do. They think quantum mechanics is the photoelectric effect. They think photosynthesis in plants is quantum mechanics. They bend everything to their model, and I suppose that's natural. But the way they claim that it's evidence of their model is the part that I find irritating.
Yes, it's so circular. So they just provide that, like somehow their model must be true because, they basically just, backward engineered, that it's consistent with their theory. And I can do that. You have to do more than that. Anyway, maybe jump ahead. We'll play it. Who cares?
To claim you can explain it with your model is one thing, but to claim that every single thing that manifests a sine theta angle is therefore proof of quantum mechanics. I mean, that's the part that's just so irritating.
They're claiming here in this article it has something to do with
yeah. So it's this whole wave thing, because that's the clear distinction for quantum mechanics. They basically all say it. All the talking heads say it. We know what an interference pattern looks like: on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. The simplest pattern in the universe. You can't make a pattern any simpler than on, off, on, off, on, off, on, off. And they say every time that exists, it's wave interference. And that's their logic. That's their fucking, they got Holy Ghost. Everything that looks a little fuzzy or a little funny or a little anything. No, Holy Ghost, Holy Ghost, Holy Ghost. They just throw their bullshit assumption on it. And now Ken Wheeler, as somebody brought up, is claiming that the magnetic field lines are created by interference. Insanely stupid fucking thing to say.
Band gaps and things like that. Although I don't see any direct attribution to quantum mechanics here in the history of blue LEDs. Yeah. But you say, like, one of your main objections here is that neither quantum mechanics nor Einstein's relativity explain things as fundamental as like the power source for gravity and magnets. Now, I've always thought that to be an interesting question, Well,
it's a huge, when you think about how big an absence that is.
Yeah, and nobody talks about it. Nobody has any, it's a, but see, the irony is these guys later are going to sit there and interrogate me on creation, essentially. I mean, I give them 2 force bits, 2 matter bits, and a simple checkerboard of functions. Tiny amount of elemental function, and that's not reduced enough. They want more reduction. They want me to explain why photons move the speed of light, like somehow, and like it would matter. if all the forces are the same and they all move some other speed, the universe would work the same way. I mean, it's not essential. You change one constant, you'll change everything else that the things do. You'll change the size of everything. You'll change everything. But anyway, that's a whole nother argument. No point in getting into that. The more fundamental point is this is a huge gap in the explanatory power of quantum mechanics and bent space. Huge. And nobody cares. I mean, it's a gigantic omission. I mean, the two magnets fly into each other. They make a sound. And nobody accounts for where the energy come from. How do you do that? How do you make things fly into each other without burning any fuel? How do you do that? Nobody asked the question. Are theoretical physicists who espouse quantum theory? It's not just theoretical physicists, it's all physicists. So again, just don't play games here. This isn't about theoretical physicists, quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics is the foundation of current physics. There is no physics. They're not founded on mechanical interaction. They're founded on Heisenberg and Huygens and anti-particles and dark matter. This is their fucking foundation now. This isn't some fucking theoretical thing. This is their certainty. So let's see. Who espouse quantum theory simply trying to interject spiritual metaphysical undertones into science. Clearly they've succeeded. Okay, they're not attempting or trying. They've done it. The whole fucking physics is owned by it now. There's no doubt. I mean, there's no, who are you kidding? You can't find a physicist who won't defend this horse shit. And if they don't defend it, they have some stupider explanation like string theory. I had answers for the 3 questions, but I was afraid to keep them posted because you'd malign my attempts to educate you where you lack. Well, fuck you off. I mean, if you're too big a pussy to make your argument, then just fuck off, Dookie. I mean, what a lame excuse. Oh, I couldn't answer your questions because I'm as scared that you'll point out how your answers suck. Oh, yeah, really? Yeah, that might happen. Sure thing, I think. Fucking assholes. Again, this message that pops up, what value is this? Yes, I know. I just block them. I can see that. It says right here, message deleted by Draft Science. I can see that. I don't need you to tell me with a little fucking banner popping up in my way.
A deficit in their theory. That's a huge deficit when you think, of how much energy it takes to move galaxies and move planets and move suns and move all of these big celestial bodies. And they're not accounting for any of it, none. It just comes from the magical bent space energy factory,
And I mean, again, what is your counter argument? All you fucking pigeon-brained fucknuts. What is your counter argument to that simple point? Why is it good enough for you to accept a theory that has no explanation for moving zillions of billions of tons of matter and you don't have any rockets? No, nothing that makes it happen. Nothing. No force causes it. No something causes it. And that's okay with you. That's a perfectly complete theory. We're all done now. We've finished physics with that bullshit answer. It just happens. Magnets move into each other. Magnets run away from each other. Just the way it is. Magnets do that. That's good enough. How is that not what you're doing? You're saying that's good enough. We have a good enough answer. Virtual photon is good enough answer. Good enough. That's enough. We don't need anything more. Yet you'll force me to explain why photons move the speed of light. People are, you're so full of shit. You're such fucking goddamn duplicitous fucking hypocrites. The human organism is such a piece of scum. I don't believe in aliens, but I'm clearly, whatever, maybe my father was irradiated besides being burned in acid. There has to be some other reason why, because I'm obviously not one of you fucking lying sacks of diluted shit.
And you don't have to have a force, and you don't have to have the, because everything else, all other forces require us to fuel the force. We have to do something to force the explosion or the expansion, and we can account for why it exists. Like we know the atom is compressed, and if you uncompress it, okay, that's nuclear power. We can figure out where the energy comes from, but they don't have it for the two most important things, gravity and magnetism. Neither one do they have an explanation of what burned the energy. The Earth didn't get lighter. The sun doesn't get lighter from, it gets a little bit lighter from emitting photons, but it doesn't get lighter by producing gravity. So where does the...
Well, this is an easy question to answer, right? So why do some physicists and scientists criticize spiritual gurus like Deepak Chopra for using quantum theory language? Well, because their God is not one of these traditional spiritual gods. Their God is, a singularity or love or whatever the fuck it is. It's a new age God that's even newer than Deepak Chopra. It's the God of mathematics, that kind of shit. And so they don't want anybody who isn't part of their club claiming ownership of their special cup, with their club logo on it. Yeah, that's it. They just don't want anybody else using their club logos, their club cups. Anyway, continuing.
Energy come from?
Again, yes, you can talk about it forever, and you'll never get will any of these assholes ever give me a straight fucking answer? Where does the energy come from? The sun doesn't get no lighter. The earth don't get no lighter. Not burning nothing. How the fuck does it get propelled anywhere if it's nothing pushing it there? How does the magnet move into the other magnet? Where's the explosion? Where's the expansion? Where's the heat? Where's the photons? Where's the something pushing it? How the fuck does it get there if nothing pushes it there? Fucking cunts.
They don't have an answer.
Well, what about you personally? Have you heard of any plausible answers to that question?
Yeah, well, I think the plausible answer is my theory that it's a particle force. It's one force, and it's coming from the outside in. So, like the cosmic background radiation, there's little tons out there, little bits of energy, and they're all moving in random directions, and that essentially equals even pressure on everything. And in that pressure field, when two things get close to each other, they will, in a sense, shadow each other. It's sort of the wrong way to say it, but they shadow each other, and they create less pressure between them because it's a straight line force and nothing bends around. So that's what creates what we call attraction.
Yeah, it's so obvious. I don't know how people can disagree with this. I've explained all the little fucking problems that this theory had. It's a brilliant explanation. It solves the problem of where the energy comes from. It comes from the universe. It's full of energy, full of stuff we can't see, just like the microwaves flying right through my head and all the other shit moving around me, cell phone calls going right through me right now, all kinds of shit going right through me. Yeah, there's more shit than we can even imagine going right through us all the fucking time. And that's the shit that makes everything happen. That's everything that moves because that shit moves it. Dumbasses.
which is really two things being pushed into each other, not two things being pulled into each other. But that explains it, in my opinion, quite well, because it also explains magnetism.
So that's more of a, say, a particle type pushing theory.
Yeah, it's definitely part. I think photons are particles. I think everything's particles. Yes, I mean, I think all the forces are all the things moving the speed of light are a discrete little particle moving the speed of light. It's either at a frequency or.
Yeah, this is so simple. And how could people fuck this up? It's a little clump, and it moves the speed of light in a straight line until it hits an electron. I mean, how can people fuck this up?
It's polarized, but there's no other. Gravity would be unpolarized, light would be at a frequency, and magnetism would be polarized. And so, with those three different variations on the same force,
Right. So, the gravity, the big universe force, the one we see as the big universe force. Obviously, the little universe is the only universe. There's no other universe but the little universe. The big universe is just a byproduct of what the little universe is doing. Again, is that a wrong statement? Do any of you fucking idiots disagree with that statement? The little universe is the only universe. The big universe is just a byproduct, an expression of it. We're cells. We're atoms. We're energy. We're not this body thing. We're a composite material. We're made of something. And what we're made of is what we really are. That's our function. The computer is the fucking motherboard and the memory chips and the CPU and all that shit. The computer isn't the box.
we can create most of the stuff we see happening.
Okay, so I think but for dissidents, I think it's fair game to say that.
All right, so this is a lie. I've dealt with both aberration and drag. I've done it. So, this is just you're saying still fails. No, there's no failure. I've done it. The aberration is easy to account for. As pointed out, it's a spherical force. The inverse square law demands aberration in the sense that the force is being diluted by being sent to all locations. So you can't move away from gravity. You can't. It's not a personal interaction. It's an interaction with a dimension, with the entire 180 degrees of the dimension. So I've already explained this. So this is just a lie, a fucking lie, a despicable fucking lie. I didn't misunderstand anything. You're not making a counter argument. You're just making declarations. I don't accept declarations as arguments. Make an evidenced argument where I have not accounted for it. I have accounted for it. Liar. Why is the moon tidally locked? What does that have to do with anything? You want to get into tides? An incredibly complex manifestation of gravity. You want to sit there and discuss that in a live room. Why don't you look? There's a really good Veritasium video. Okay, I don't like Veritasium much, but go watch that. Okay, and he goes through all of the fucking different ways that gravity manifests, and there's like 4 different gravitational effects that cause tides. All of them do it. Little bit of this, little bit of that, little bit of this, little bit of that. Fucking idiot. Its energy surrounds us. Oh, here we go. It's quoting some crap. And binds us. Oh, it's fucking Star Wars. Whatever. This isn't Yoda, but it is the truth. That's the way it works. We're byproducts of what the Force was doing. We're determined robots. There's nothing magical happening. There's energy and interacting with material bits, little reflective bits. And so the little things are interacting with the little solid things. The things moving are interacting with things that aren't moving. Okay, and the stuff moves much slower than the stuff that's causing the movement. So it's moving much slower than the other stuff's moving. And that's the complexity that creates all the complexity. So yes, make it trivial. Fuck you. So technically, some particles don't have a spin. The spin is bullshit, okay? You're never going to see a particle spinning. There's no manifestation of spin. Spin can't possibly be relevant without a medium. Really can't be when you're talking about particles that have no real mass. I mean, they're not massive enough for spin to be relevant. It can't create any force effect that could possibly manifest into an interaction with something else. Spin can only mean something in a medium. I guess. Okay. The makers of it's just an unnecessary complication. Is all I would say to you. You don't need spin to explain charge and how things function. It's totally unnecessary to throw it in because you don't need it. The makers of art often encode their in knowledge. What is it? Who cares? Whether the creators of Star Wars humored the idea you are now theorizing about is possible. Well, no, it's not really not. It's just a little piece of poetry. It's in a movie context. They're trying to make a religion that doesn't have a God in it who cares about killing homosexuals, right? I mean, the Force wouldn't care about killing homosexuals. And, it doesn't give a shit about your sexual practices and all that kind of crap, whether you get an abortion or not. Yeah, the Force doesn't care. So they're just trying to make a God that's really just fun. It's the good force. And then there's the dark force. Well, where did I talk about any dark force and good force or yin or yang or any of that crap? So I really don't like being labeled with it because this has absolutely nothing to do with the mechanical kinetic theory I'm proposing. Two balls swinging back and forth and hitting each other. Now, you can try to force that to be a Star Wars metaphor, but it's fucking not. Would photons accelerate more? They can't accelerate. They're already going the fucking fast as they can. They're going the speed of light. They always go the speed of light. They never go anything else. There's no such fucking thing as an accelerating photon. People are just too fucking stupid. You talked about red force and black force. Yes, as representations of polarization, not representations of good and bad, plus or minus. The fact that we call it plus and minus is our defect, right? There's no minus force. They're just two different forces. I mean, distinctly opposite. One's right side up, one's opposite, upside down. One has to do by perspective, which is right side up, right? If the universe only has two things and there's one's going this way and one's going that way, do we know which way is down? Do we know which way is the wrong way and which way is the right way? No, there's no distinction. Whatever. You people are just pathetic. You have to turn everything into some kind of bullshit. I'm as clear and I say it as directly as possible. The force does one thing. It moves the speed of light in a straight fucking line until it hits an electron. Now, what does that have to do with any good force, bad force bullshit? Anyway, what's the best way to stop groundhogs from burying underneath the house? I don't know. I mean, fuck you. If I knew, then I wouldn't have groundhogs under the neighbor's house that I have to catch. Fucking cunt. Gold, oil, drugs. Well, whatever. I don't think gold is all that relevant, frankly. I mean, it's just a commodity, like paintings or Rolls Royces. It's just something to own and sell. Some would say we pull a rope, but you have to push on the rope to move it. Obviously, that's the whole point. It's like a doorknob. Yes, you know, pull the door open, you're pushing on the backside of the doorknob. Yes, it's all push. You just have to find the push. Gary, I think you're too sensitive. No, I'm too sick of everybody being stone cold brain dead. I'm not being too sensitive. This is not complicated. People are trying to make it complicated. They're trivializing it by comparing it to Star Wars crap. They're never on the fucking subject. They never make a counter argument. They never answer any of my fucking questions. Why are you people satisfied with a physics explanation that leaves the two most obvious force events, galactic movement and magnets, and you don't have to account for where the energy comes from? Why are you satisfied with a fucking theory that doesn't explain the most energetic stuff that takes place in your real world? I mean, yes, it's not nuclear physics, but in a regular common man's life, magnetism and gravity are huge, and you don't give a fuck about having a real explanation for either one. Why shouldn't I be fucking irritated by that? Why shouldn't that make me want to goddamn puke on humanity? I mean, it's too fucking stupid. They're giving me all this grief and all these headaches when they've accepted a theory that says fucking nothing rational about the fucking universe. And you make a list of your constraints. A list of constraints. I don't know what even that would be. In your theory, you can quickly point to. Again, I did these overview videos and question videos. You go to my channel page, there's overview and questions. Just watch them, shithead. I have a fucking website that explains the basic theory, so channel newbies can follow. It's not my obligation, sorry. I mean, I do point out that there, you know, every now and then that there are simple questions to be answered, and I have overview videos. Everything moves at light speed. Where did I say everything moves at light speed? What I said is it's the only force that moves everything. I said clearly the matter bits move much slower, quite obviously. But if the matter bit moves, it moves because one of those things going the speed of light made it move. Shit. I agree with your ideas, Gary. It's all a push pressure. Yes, it is. An overall photon pressure. Well, whether it's, again, photon is just gets you in trouble because a photon implies one thing. And photons are at a frequency. It can't be a one thing if it's got a frequency. You gotta, if there's a period between events, it can't be a one thing. So, I mean, it's just not a good enough word, photon. It'd be really nice to use it, but you just can't because it doesn't really, it's a bit, an energy bit, a force bit. Photons are made of a stream of force bits, a stream at a precise frequency. Without a precise frequency and without polarization, then it's gravity. And if you segregate the force bits, red, blue, whatever, the electron force versus the proton force, you segregate them, you have magnetism. There, done, simple, finished. Would you recommend watching the Dissident Science YouTube channel for beginners like me? Why? It's a fucking, it's a cartoon show. No, I wouldn't recommend. There's no physics on his channel. His channel is propaganda substantially. He makes claims. He doesn't show anything. He doesn't demonstrate anything. He believes in all this small earth crap, and he believes creationists have something valuable to contribute. He believes lots of crap that I find insanely silly. He defends essentially truther theory. So yes, no, I wouldn't recommend anybody watch it except somebody who wants to point out how this is why dissidents get labeled as nutters, because yeah, they really don't follow the rules. You got to present what's called evidence. You can't just make declarations. Dinosaurs were too big to live on Earth. A big Earth. Not a proven fact. Really isn't a proven fact. It's just not. They had really, really big bones, big fat legs. There's every indication they were made to walk around in strong gravity.
Your theory probably should answer that question. I think in our upcoming conference we're having a Grand Prix, and I think one of the questions is, what is gravity? And I suppose, it's not just the equation of what the force of gravity.
Well, the equation is so simple. Gravity is the inverse square law. That's how the force acts, and all the rest is just understanding that it's a little bit inductive. That is, one thing has to move towards the other thing before the other thing feels the force, and they have to create the net gravity. But clearly, everything already has gravity, and I've already explained that yesterday in the terms of the thermal heat is evidence of the gravity. The Earth is molten in the middle because of gravity. All right. Okay. I don't know what okay means, but fine. Not to patronize, but you are the one of the brightest people on YouTube. Sincerely. Yes, well, that's going to get you nowhere. Fine. Okay. But I mean, somebody has to be smart to recognize smart. You see, that's always the catch. So there's no knowing who you are. So there doesn't mean much coming from some guy who, might have dirty underwear. I don't know. You just, you might not be a good enough, your testimony. You might be Jeffrey Dahmer. What the hell do I know? It really wouldn't be a great endorsement. Oh yeah, I got a Jeffrey Dahmer endorsement. That doesn't do me any good, but I appreciate it. I mean, it's certainly something I know. Yeah, it's my opinion too. So at least we agree that yes, I'm obviously fucking smarter than anybody else on this planet. I won't even say smarter. I'm more rational. I have less garbage in my brain, less voodoo and woo and drunk syndrome or something. I don't know. Less, there's less garbage in my neurons are coherent to evidence. Yeah. Where apparently you fuckers just couldn't care less. Well, not you fucker, but I mean, There's obviously people who know more details about the reality. I mean, they know more details, but no one's put the facts together as well as I have. Just saying. Seems obvious to me. Well, why would I debate physics with Das Spook? He doesn't know any physics first, and he's, he believes there's magical stuff, UFOs and spirit wanderers or something or whatever. Woo. He's a wooer. No point in having a conversation with him. He's essentially a religious kook. I mean, a real religious kook.
He is, but you know what exactly creates that thing? What mediates it? What powers it?
So that's the great thing about the external particle model, is that it duplicates the inverse square law perfectly. So it even not only does it explain where the energy comes from, but it's the exact way you create the inverse square law.
I mean, this is another argument that just seems so obvious. I mean, all people draw the sun with little rays coming out of it, right? People draw light bulbs with little rays coming out of it. You just think of that exactly backwards. That's the inverse square law. The sun, the light coming off the sun obeys the inverse square law. That is, the light gets 4 times weaker. You double the distance. It's the same exact law. And if you just reverse the force, that is not coming out of the light bulb, it's going into the light bulb, you can understand that it would be exactly the same inverse square law that would be obeyed. It's just so obvious that, yes, just like the rays of sunlight and just like the rays of light bulb light, this effect, okay, half the distance, 4 times bigger, that's what's causing it. The divergence of the rays. Let's see. You know, you're right about aberration. No one ever realized that the inverse square law shows that gravity spreads. After 100 plus years, you are the first to realize this. Well, I don't know whether I'm first to realize it, but I clearly, even when you tell people, look, it's that obvious, they still don't get, they still give you trouble. Like, what do you mean? You know, so what? It spreads thinner. Why does that make it weaker? You spread it thinner, that means there's less? Yeah, exactly. This really does show you're a genius compared to the others who don't realize something so obvious. Look, the fact that the fucking lens is the wrong shape for gravitational lensing. Like every single image ever drawn of a gravitational lens always shows the lens in this shape when a gravity lens is this shape. That one's hugely obvious. And no one's pointed that out. Like the lens is the wrong shape. No one said that. It's not a magnifying lens. How can it magnify a faraway object when it's the wrong fucking lens? I mean, fuck. Yes, he didn't just make that video. He made that video like 4 days ago. I watched half of it. I'm like halfway through it. And I already did it in my what the fuck. So Ash, you're like way behind. I already referenced Anacondavod's video in my Mendham video, you fucking idiot. And again, this is not that channel. This is the Draft Science channel. So if you don't want me to block you, I can block you. But what the fuck does Anacondavod have to do with this fucking conversation, you fucking cunt? Oh, damn. Well, you really think there's a point in me trying to contact NASA and point out, well, you know, you put people out to explain how the lens of the wrong shape could actually work. You think the LIGO people want me to explain to them how light diffraction works and that they have no real theory for their interferometer and how it could possibly even work because there's really no room for this light interference anywhere in the experiment? No, I'm sure they don't want to hear it. Or I could explain to them how the fuck did you get away with proposing that you can convert matter into bent space? I mean, where did Einstein even suggest that was a possibility? I mean, should I explain to them why the Einstein gimmick of the photon thinks it's in the gravity twice as long, therefore it gets affected twice as much because it thinks it is? Amazing crap. We live in the volume of the universe. Okay, you're going to get blocked for this because this doesn't sound like anything. Maybe instead of I squared, whatever this is, it's R cubed inverse, just a thought. No, that isn't a thought. That's fucking neurological vomit. I don't know how you even typed that crap without your brain just saying, fuck, I have no excuse for living. What a pile of rubbish. Why are you mean to? Because people suck. Deeply suck. That support your ideas. Support them with what? Mischaracterizations, stupid, idiotic notions that I never said. Because they can't understand. You say it over and over again. Photon, little clump, moves in a straight line and always travels the speed of light. There. And they can't get that right. They can't repeat that correctly. But maybe don't get every detail. No, they don't get anything right. You flunked physics in high school. So what? I explained why I did. Hot chick, nerdy professor. Surely you can relate to people, and I didn't flunk because when I forced them to give me a test in front of the principal, I passed the oral test. Surely you can relate to people who don't catch on to stuff right away. Again, there's nothing to catch on to here. I make assertive statements. The conventional theory doesn't explain the energy required to move planets, and it doesn't explain the energy required to move magnets. And they are defending that theory. What more do I need to explain? I point out how the lens is the wrong fucking shape. What more needs to be explained? Their theory is preposterous. Heisenberg, a made-up notion that photons don't have a place in the universe. They're not in one position. They're everywhere at once. Huygens, a silly notion that the photon splits in two and interferes with itself and does some calculus to figure out where it's supposed to go. They're preposterous explanations. If I was suggesting that dogs, invisible dogs, move everything in the universe, it would be better than their nonsense. You're an actor. No, I'm not. Okay, you're lying. Okay, fuck you. Just go to hell. Die. God, scum. Why are you so mean to people? Because you suck. Yeah. I mean, I said it. Because they suck. And then you just turned into a piece of suck. No, squared doesn't imply a flat plane. Squared implies spherical radiation, idiot. Oh. I mean, okay. So now using this stupid Cartesian word. What do we need this word for? There's real space, little cubes of space, little cubes of space. If you could do it with cubes, you can see how it works. Okay, 3, okay, 9, 12, 15. You can see the progression. Square is a two-dimensional shape. Yes, well, it doesn't, again, a cube would work, obviously. But yes, it's obviously, I would argue that the fundamental universe probably is in cubes. Frankly, the elemental universe probably is square, cubed, cubes. There are no circles in the elemental universe, probably. But clearly, the concept of a sphere, from our perspective, is just a point source. And it radiates in every dimension. So every dimensional vector gets its amount of radiation, equally distributed. That's the inverse square. So, but yes, he's correct. Squares are, it's just the wrong word, okay? Frankly. the square is an area. Okay, they're doing the Pythagorean thing. Okay, they're taking a triangle, and square means you draw the square on the surface of the line. So you're converting a line and you're squaring a line. So you're squaring a one-dimensional object into a two-dimensional object. So squaring just has to do with doubling or adding a dimension. So when you take the square and you add the cube, that's squaring the two-dimensional object. That is, it's doubling, adding another dimension. But there's nothing here that needs any of this. This is totally unnecessary. It's total rubbish. You're looking for a way to escape to a wonderland. Fine, go down your rabbit holes, go down your wacky holes, play with your fake bullshit. I've given you a perfectly valid explanation. There's no need to worry about whether the word squared is the appropriate or perfect word to use when you're doubling a square, which is creating a cube, which is increasing the volume, okay, exponentially. Interesting. I don't think Picasso had something to say about that. Who cares what Picasso? I don't give a fuck. What is volume? What does that mean? Well, I guess it's again. There's no point in R3. it's you know. So just take something that we know that language is always a little bit imprecise. So you know. And you're just going to focus on irrelevant semantics and just ignore the fucking rational arguments I've presented. And just, why are you wasting my time? All right. And Etch-a-Sketch only has linear inputs. Combining them can make a curve, right? No. It's an Aliste line. You can see it. I mean, it's horribly Aliste. It's a bunch of fucking lines going this way or this way. For fuck's sake. Damn, you've never taken a magnifying glass to your computer screen? You've never. You must have really bad eyesight. I mean, I had an Etch-a-Sketch as a kid. You can see that they're not curves. For fuck's sake. The same is true of the Earth. The Earth doesn't travel in some perfect curve. It's actually by volume Alising all over the place by mass. What are those rational arguments? Fuck off. I never heard them. I just hear you wailing on and okay, I've made 800 videos. Most of the videos are drawings and explanations of how the force works. There's videos on the homepage that just say, overview videos, explain in overview how the theory works. Fuck you, die of cancer, you fucking scum. I mean, I can't make this any clearer. I've emphasized the points here. Why is the lens the wrong shape? Why don't you answer one of my questions, you fucking weasel, you fucking coward? Why don't you answer one of my questions, coward? Let's see. IDK, if you're interested, but Fake Wayne had a video to you just saying, well, I don't know. How would I see it, right? A video to me doing what? He's demonstrated no capacity to ever accurately quote me or in any way argue anything I actually said. But clearly I'm not subbed to his channel or anything. So unless he has the word draft science in the title, I mean, I could search on that, but I'm not going to search under Fake Wayne. see you back, dude. Back from what, you insane kook? I mean, I don't think I've not made a video in 1 week for 10 years. I mean, I haven't had 1 week where I didn't make a video in 10 years. Where was I gone to that I'm back from? But the staircase viewed from the side, from the long look, you're okay. I'm just going to block you. All right. No, I'll give you one last chance. You stay on the subject, or you can just go to hell. This isn't about Usher paintings. It's not about other bullshit. You want to believe in whatever you go ahead and believe in it. I'm making a simple comparison between my theory and the cracky nut shit that conventional physics believes. That's the subject of this channel. That's the purpose of this channel. That's the purpose of this room. I'm really totally uninterested in your fucking little fables and fairy tales about, well, if I turn the universe upside down or I make it out of cotton candy or whatever your speculation is. It's baby talk. Fuck it. Do it someplace else. I'm totally uninterested. Yeah, resolution makes a difference. I mean, how retarded are you? We're talking about what the accurate truth is, not seeing the accurate truth, like looking in the fog and saying, hey, in the fog, it looks like Sasquatch. Oh, it's my mother. In reality, you can't understand. We're talking about what the actual truth is. The truth is it's a staircase, shithead. That's the truth. Fucking idiot. It just goes on and on. So I'll just keep doing it and I'll just block you. There's no resolution of particles. It's irrelevant to a description. An accurate description of particles has nothing to do with resolution. You're either making accurate statements or you're making fog statements. No one's contending that there's any fog problem here. We're describing what the actual structure is, shit for brain. Wouldn't the image of the lens get compressed in one direction, like you say, but stretched in the other direction? I think so. I'm just saying that it's not going to collect more light and bring it to a focus. So the lens being the wrong shape isn't going to collect extra light from all kinds of locations and bring them to a consistent focus. So without that function, they can't say, we can see far away things because they're made brighter by the lens. That's their contention. Fog is a cloud. It's irrelevant. Not important information. We know what it is. It obscures vision. That's the only part that matters. It destroys the quality of your capacity to measure. Is light polarized? Kavaka, whatever that is. Just fuck off. I don't even know what that is. Konvanka. No. Cloud of particles combined, it looks like one mass. Cloud of particles combined. Again, you just keep playing with words. So I guess I'm just gonna have to block you because you're just wasting my time. Cloud of particles combined, it looks like one mass. Who cares? How is this relevant? What things look like? Again, I made it explicit. We're talking about accurate descriptions of reality, and you keep talking about inaccurate descriptions of reality. I told you what the purpose of the channel is, and you're not relevant to any of that. Oh, he's doing the from a distance thing again, too, after I just said, fuck that. So goodbye. I'm sorry. You just can't play here. You're wasting my goddamn time. Oh, God, people. Gotta hate them. Doesn't need to have a focal point or anything like that. Yes, it does. To magnify, you have to focus. It's the rule of magnification. So fuck you for saying that. Just stretch the image in one direction. How does stretching make something brighter? That makes something less bright. Surface brightness is conserved, so it's proportional to image area. Again, we're talking about the only way you can do this is to project, okay? The images of me are being projected in every single direction. There's an image of me here. There's an image of me 4 miles away. There's an image of me everywhere, in every direction. And the idea is to collect as many of those images as photons as possible in an area. That is, they project out to a big area, the lens, and then they're refocused to a small area, my eye. That's how lenses work. That's how they magnify. They can't magnify if they're shaped the exact opposite. That is, the light that needs to be reflected the most is reflected the least. And the light that needs to be reflected the least is reflected the most. Shit. Just stretch the image in one direction. Surface brightness is conserved, so it's proportional to image area. So again, you just, I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert. Optics is a really deep subject, but I don't think you have to be an expert on optics to understand they're fundamentally different lenses. Maybe instead of kappa, he meant for saying quanta. Well, it doesn't matter, does it? I don't think it was a useful statement. I don't have time for it. And yeah, fuck it. I can't undo it. So fuck it. I mean, you're just, most of the time, if all you're typing is 6-word sentences, you're probably not going to do anything but piss me off. Yes, no disagreement. But the point is that the lens is concave in one direction. Again, you agree, but you're going to disagree. Oh, okay. That makes sense. But convex in the other direction in a sense. That's all. No, the point is to bring all those photons to one location, you have to bend the ones that need a lot of bending a lot, and you have to bend the ones that need less bending less. And their lens does the exact opposite. It bends the ones that need a little bending more, and it bends the ones that need a lot of bending less. So it can't possibly bring more photons to the focus. Especially the Einstein ring, okay? Just think of the Einstein ring. It can't happen. It's not possible. Because clearly that's bending. You're stuck with the object being exactly behind the other object. So they're exactly behind it. So clearly the rays you've got to bend are all have to be bent more the further away they are. The further away I go from that point, the more severe the angle is and the more bending I need. So it's just that obvious that all of the Einstein ring things can't possibly be lensing because the lens can't do that. A gravity lens can't do it because it's bending the stuff out further less, and that needs to be bent more, and it's bending the stuff in closer more, and it needs to be bent less. And it's by the inverse square law anyway, right? I've already pointed out that the inverse square law is not a very good shape of a lens. I mean, it's like a diamond shape or something. It's not even a good shape. So it's not even a regular convex lens. It's a fucking triangle this way and a triangle this way lens. It's really misshapen. It just has no hope of collecting photons and bringing them to a focus. So another 10 minutes or something, maybe 5, maybe 7, maybe 15. We'll see how you do. If you don't do anything, then you'll be out of luck. Yes. You'll be out of luck. Hilarious. I mean, this room would be a great idea if somebody actually could argue physics. Me being the only one arguing real physics is the thing that ruins it. Because you need more other people making actual arguments and explaining something, and nobody doing that. They're all talking about dust bunnies and how many buckets of piss does it take to drown an elephant? Well, it looks like we're talking past each other. Goodbye. Oh, fine. Good. Okay. Yes. I mean, I made it as clear as I can make it. The lens doesn't work. You say you agree, but then you disagree. So I don't know. Seems to me you didn't just say, if you would have just said, yes, no disagreement. There, that would have been fine. We're done. The lens is the wrong shape. It's not going to focus light. It's not going to collect more light and bring it to a focus. Can't possibly magnify an image. Can't do any of that shit. You either agree or you disagree, but you're just playing a game. Probably should just block you because you're going to, just being an asshole about it. Oh, fuck you. Oh, good. A flat earth question. Here you go. Fuck you. Fuck you. Why don't you ask me my opinion on anal warts? Flat earth has nothing to do with science. It's retarded. And you're retarded and you're an asshole to ask anybody with a brain what they think of it. Idiot. I mean, instant block. You bring up flat earth, instant block. Lens shape is wrong, then people talk for dark matter. Why they believe dark matter so much? Obviously, English may not be your first language. I've made it clear. They're fucking idiots. They believe in Heisenberg, Huygens, many worlds, string theory. They believe in all kinds of horse shit. That's why. Ah, 69. I guess you're in the wrong chat. Yeah, I guess you are. You're just so funny. Sorry, brother. You ain't my brother. You're a fucking boy. I'm a man. You a boy. Well, I'll say one thing for this room. I've clearly blocked more people than any other room yet. So, but they all were idiots, right? I mean, come on. I told you, I just said, don't bring up flat Earth. You're going to get blocked. And what do? Flat Earth. It's not flat Earth science. It's not a science. It's just a retarded truther theory. It's idiotic. It's Sasquatch theory. It's nonsense. There's no fake moon landings, so you're getting blocked. I mean, you're just an idiot. Oh, a conspiracy of millions of people, and not one of them went to the National Enquirer with evidence of the faked moon landing. Not a single one. Millions of people just said, okay, let's just all lie to everybody about something really important. Fuck you. I mean, really, it's just so funny that people give me an argument about blowing the planet up or killing all the life on Earth, and certainly antinatalism, getting rid of humans. And look at them. Look how fucking idiotic these things are, these fucking monsters. And people argue with me that there's some of these people need to live. For what? Do you think Tom Cruise will ever find love? I mean, it's talk physics, it says. And no, you didn't get disconnected. But I mean, you got blocked, but I mean, I can just do it again. There. I did it again. Oh, boy. I'm going to work on my I hate people opus. I'm going to write a whole big opus. Just how much people suck. Oh, we know this is going to be another useless troll. Hello, my fellow scientist. Yeah, I'm sure you're a scientist. Sure you are. You smelled your own poo once and thought that was hey, that's an scientific experiment. Then you tried to figure out how far you could shove your finger up your mother's ass. Oh, it's a scientific experiment. Am I not welcome here? Apparently you're not. You're just retarded. You first think you're a scientist when what the hell does that even mean? You clearly can't be a scientist because you can only type 4 and 5-letter sentences. You're clearly not talking any science. You're just being a douche. God damn. I mean, it's so embarrassing to be human. I mean, I just don't know how the rest of you aren't feeling the embarrassment that this is what the human race does. This is how incapable they are of doing anything that means anything honest, anything rational. They're just assholes. The banhammer swings without mercy. Well, what mercy is there? I mean, the test here is really low, the bar. You don't have to fucking climb very high. This is like the Monty Python Olympics, where you have to just step over a bunch of matchboxes. You don't have to lift your foot very high to get over the bar. Hey, I stumbled on your channel from Theora. Oh, well, that you're, what are your thoughts on his breakthroughs? I've done videos. Type draft science and Theora in the search engine, and you'll get a whole bunch. I've done 20 videos dissecting his rubbish. Well, you can't really dissect it. It's like dissecting vomit. It's just a bunch of the same shit. Hyperboloid, magnitude of non-space. The nothing makes the nothing do the nothing. Whatever. I mean, it's just crap. What's his breakthrough anyway? By the way, I'm sorry. What's his breakthrough? The permafat. Permafat, is that his breakthrough? Permafat. Yeah, it just is a yeah, it's just very depressing. Humans. Anyway, so I think we're done. Yes, dielectricity. No, there's this thing called a dielectric. A dielectric is an insulator, like glass. You see, where it can hold charge on the surface, but that's it. The charge can't move through the substance, but it can hold a lot of charge on its surfaces. That's a dielectric. There is no dielectricity. There's just a dielectric substance. There's a substance that's a dielectric. There is no dielectricity. It's an idiotic jumble of words that can't be combined. There's no fucking such thing. There's electricity, no dielectricity. Electricity is the movement of electrons. There's no field of electricity. There's no nothing. No, electricity is a specific kind of force pushing electrons, creating voltage, pressure. That's electricity. There's no other phenomenon. That's it. There's no dielectricity, which is what? Electrons. Oh, no. Force. No. There's no other way to make it. There's no other stuff to make dielectricity out of. There's just the force bits and the electrons. That's all there are. There's electrons and protons. That's it. There's nothing to make dielectricity out of. Albert Einstein fan. Oh, I'm sure he's a retard, so we'll just kill him. Hello. Well, goodbye. What's your opinion of Neil deGrasse Tyson? It's not really relevant, but I think he's a clown, a fucking science clown. What's your opinion on hollow earth theory? Okay, now we'll block you. I mean, really, it's like asking me, what's your opinion of rimming anuses or something? French kissing an anus. Stupid question, stupid response. I don't know what to say. Yeah, fuck you. You're too retarded. Dielectric. Well, you said dielectricity. What would be a dielectricity? You say dielectric is storage of induced charge. It's storage of pressure. It's voltage. There's nothing dielectric. There's voltage, amperage. These are real things. There's no counter to it. There's no other dielectric electric. There's no dielectric voltage. There's just voltage. There's just charge or no charge. There is no electric dielectric form. There's only one form, electric. There is no dielectric form. You can keep playing this game, but there is none. Dielectric capacitors are like batteries. They're holding real charge. They're holding electrons under pressure. A capacitor is just a pressure regulator. It accepts pressure and stores it. Dielectric and capacitors. Again, the dielectric is the substance in the capacitor that separates the conductors. It's the insulator is the dielectric. Jesus fucking Christ. Semiconductors, yes. Again, semiconductors have nothing to do with this. Semiconductors can't even really they can't synthesize a capacitor with a semiconductor. That's why the motherboard on your computer or all these other things, it's all integrated circuits and capacitors because they can't make a semiconductor capacitor. You're not even making sentences here. Dielectric and capacitors, semiconductors, yes, but no dielectric. Not heard this being by itself. You're just not even, what is this? I know, I'm engineer. I don't know, you're not an engineer in English. I have no opinion on hadrons besides saying bullshit. All of this stuff that doesn't exist for more than a second. Okay, so any particle that can't exist for more than a second isn't a fucking particle. It's just crap. It's irrelevant. It's a fender on a 1962 Volkswagen. I don't think so many modern scientists believe in string theory. I really don't think most physicists believe in it. I think it's only a few fringies. Hydrinos. Is that what it actually says? Hydrinos? Oh, fuck. All right. Well, I gave you another 15 minutes, I think. So I think we've done enough. I've once again attempted to engage in intelligence on planet Earth and failed to find one in 2 hours, but whatever. There's no water-fueled cars, quite obviously. They'd have to be electric-fueled because you have to separate the hydrogen from the oxygen. They're not fueled by water. Water isn't a really good fuel. Doesn't have any easily accessed energy in it. You have to put energy into it to get energy out of it. So it's stupid. It's like flashlight-powered solar panels. What do I think? What do you think of flashlight-powered solar panels? I think it's fucking stupid. Anyway, I love you. Well, I wish that worked for me. But anyway. Yes, electrolysis requires energy. How about autodynamics? Again, I just couldn't give a shit. I've made it clear what this room is about. It's about contrasting my rational theory against their irrational theory. It's not about autodynamics, whatever the fuck that is. Oh, jeez. Puke. I hate people. I hate them so fucking much. All right, till next time, when I'll hate you some more. No doubt. Fuckers.